This is Jeff Tadlock and Jessica Schab. I will break the ice by saying that you were a spiritual person with a lot of followers, and you had some sort of revelation in your life that it was all false or fable. And I want you to tell me a little bit more about this. Fill in the blanks. Let us know about you and this experience.
I got into spirituality quite heavily because I had gone through a lot of difficult things, trauma, and I guess I was not. A lot of people get into it for escaping reality. I don't think I was escaping reality per se. I was fighting these ideas at first, but when it seemed like it just kept coming up over and over, and then when I lost my dad, and my dad was really trying to promote these beliefs to me as well. And I was quite harsh with him. I felt a lot of guilt. And so I embraced these beliefs in order to make it up to him and like, oh, maybe there is something here and I'm just fighting it, you know. And
okay, can I press you on what the nature of these beliefs were?
It's so vast. It's basically everything New Age you can possibly imagine. So let's see, spirit guides, ET, connecting with ET family, conspiracy ideologies, thoughts create reality, law of attraction, chakras, so the whole gambit. If you name it, I probably was into it.
Okay.
And I did resist, and then I went intensely into it. And I mainly got into it also because I really thought it was helping other people. I had people constantly, I started making YouTube videos of all these ideas that were coming to me. I wanted to give people some kind of comfort. I wanted to let them know they weren't crazy. And so people started to very much, let's use the word resonate.
So you became an online personality and you experienced some minor success, right? I mean, you harnessed a following.
Yeah, my videos, people were immediately intrigued by. They were quite different than what was, well, first of all, not very many people were talking about these things at this time. I was one of the forerunners in this on YouTube. And then also the way I did it was very, very honest. I used YouTube to be like my confession booth to the world. So I think people really felt very comfortable with me and felt that I was genuine, and I was very sincere. I had completely convinced myself that these beliefs were true, therefore I was able to convince other people as well. You know, just giving them hope that we can activate our abilities and we can save the world, you know, very much like a movie.
Yeah. So what happened?
So I started to realize just how much I wasn't helping, and that actually I was making things worse. That I started to see how it was leading to and even encouraging abusive relationships, even for myself. People that I cared about, my friends, and even followers that I feel responsible for, I saw them ending up in mental institutions. I saw them just really getting lost to these ideas of the voices in their head or their spiritual mission. And it just went farther. I just saw them in war with reality. And
in war with reality.
This is how I explain
Powerful.
it. Yeah. And that's not right. And I had to admit that to myself. And what can you do though? Because it was very difficult to see that, because I had everybody singing my praises. Oh, you've helped me so much. You've healed me. I was also doing healing as well, long distance or Reiki. People were saying I helped them heal their cancer. I did all these things. I visited them in their dreams, and I gave them messages and wisdom to help them with their spiritual mission. It was very much like a Alice in Wonderland, right? And now my story is like the reverse Alice in Wonderland, being stoic, you know, and being in reality, and like constantly challenging these old ideologies that want to come up and take over your mind and think for you like a parasite.
So were you like, would you call yourself you were a spiritual new ager? I mean, what's the label that you identified with?
So with making my YouTube videos, I got ended up it turned into an opportunity where I got interviewed by Project Camelot. And that made me quite famous overnight. I have millions of followers suddenly. I had my videos translated in various different languages. I found out one day that I was quite famous in Spain, and I kept being invited out there. I've been up 5 times to speak at various different venues. They called me a crystal child.
A crystal child.
A light worker was another terminology. And then I gave myself the title of modern day fairy godmother. Because I thought like people needed to have magic back in their lives. You know, they needed to have some hope.
So you realize that this was all BS essentially.
No, not that. That took a long time to realize it was all BS. Of course, in the beginning, you try to, maybe you'll see some things, but okay, but it's not the whole belief, you know. Okay, that isn't good, but that might be negative energy or dark forces. You find ways to justify the belief as it's still good, but there's still things like, of course, it's not black and white, stuff like that. So no, it took a long time to be able to really see the belief as a whole and the problems that it was creating. I also didn't like this idea that I was being made to put on a pedestal. I was looked at like as an angel or some advanced being beyond everybody, and I started to see that, oh my gosh, they're just yes people, just telling me what I want to hear, how I want to hear it. And I mean, I'm like, are they seeing me as a person, or this idea?
So, you know, let me touch on something that I see here that's very particular about you and your character, and why I feel like it's been so important for me to get in touch with you. And I've tried for several months now and finally have you. It seems to me like a lot of people, even if they knew that what they were selling was fable or fraud, they get drunk on the fame, on being recognized, on people loving them or calling them an angel. And your character has rejected what most people get high on. And most people will continue to just become a charlotte, basically a fraud, because all of these people are putting them up on a pedestal and basically thinking them as a, like you said, an enlightened person, and they get high on this.
Sure.
You didn't. You did not enjoy the fakery.
No, it's awful because I mean, I always just want to help, and I don't like fake flattery. It's not genuine. It's hollow, and you know, easy come, easy go, and there's no sustenance behind it. I've always liked depth.
So a lot of people are disingenuine with no substance, but they feed off of other people's ignorance. So your character is one that is special in this world because you are looking for reality and truth, and you want to present yourself as you are, not as a charlatan.
And when I found out how many charlatans were in it, like more and more, I could start to see people were there. They knew it was all bullshit, and they were just there to exploit people and milk it for all it's worth, because it's $1 billion industry.
Mm-hmm.
And
you were well on your way, but you rejected it. This is fascinating.
Close to making quite a lot of money. I had somebody who wanted to manage me as like the next Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, speak on Oprah, but they're like, we want 50% of what you make, and you're not going to be able to respond to your followers anymore. We're going to do it, and I was like, no.
So you held on to your integrity, you held on to your pride, and you stood a flag up for truth. Is there any bitterness inside of you about losing the fame?
No, I'm glad, because if it would have gotten even bigger, it would have been even more harder and more crazy and complex. It was never about the fame. It was about sincerely being able to help and make a difference, because the world is a mess. And we're in a really bad situation, and we don't have time for our bullshit or to like make it all about ourselves or anything like that.
I'm so glad to have you on the side of reason. So why don't you share for us now a little bit what you're doing now? Just where do you land now with reality?
I don't consider myself a spiritual person at all. In fact, I have a bit of a repulsion and a caution whenever I sense anything, like when I hear a person use a certain word that I know is related to something spiritual, like resonate, or vibe. Like all these things immediately make me cautious. I am a skeptic. I consider myself a skeptic and a thinker, a questioner, not necessarily an atheist. You can have these experiences and you can look at them in a sober way. You don't need to swing from one extreme to the other.
So you're an open-minded skeptic.
I would say so, yeah. And I mean, even if there is a God, I'm surrounded by religious people, like a lot of us are. I don't care if there is a God. That's my stand. I'm not going to change I'm not going to be like, oh yes, I need to worship and praise you, because I think that's quite immature for a very advanced being to demand this. You know, and I was thinking that maybe there is a God, but maybe it's a sea turtle that is quite indifferent, lays its eggs on the beach, and you know, never to be seen again. The children are left to fend for themselves. So there's a whole bunch of different ways we could have been created, sure. But I just don't want to be like, okay, now this is the way I need to live by, and imprison my mind in all these kind of rules and ideas. You said if I miss the fame, of course, there was wonderful opportunities that came with it, but it is a double-edged sword. And, you know, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. And also the more, I mean, when I changed, my followers didn't like it. They didn't like it one bit. They associated with, I was now evil. I'm a traitor. I'm brainwashed by the Illuminati. I have handlers and just everything you can imagine. They went, I also started to go after other spiritual leaders that I knew were very dangerous, and I was concerned. And their followers went after me as well online. So now I have all these videos and websites discrediting me in every possible way. Even though I had a lot of my followers turn on me, and I also had some people that were able to understand what I was saying and could see that their beliefs were enslaving them, and they came to me to do a coaching program in which it was a year long, where people could just understand their own patterns and get their minds back. You said that the fame is like a drug, and I have to say that the belief is like a drug. In my trailer, I say that, what if you woke up one day to find out you were a drug dealer and you didn't even know it? So I was a drug dealer, and
wow.
Now I'm the president of the Center for Inquiry Vancouver. I'm doing this documentary. I would like to get into more film. I'm also a host for a skeptic, free thought radio show, WBAI 99.5 FM, Equal Time for Free Thought. I'm extremely curious. So I know I got into spirituality because of curiosity, and I got out of spirituality because of curiosity.
So do you want me to ask you the big question that has been on my mind and get some female perspective on love and relationship?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so my question for you is two parts. Do most women find themselves starving for emotional affection? And are men generally not aware or catering to this need?
So this is a really interesting question because it's quite complex. It's not so like yes and no, or yes, yes. There's layers to it. As for a guy, because guys are more, I think they're now allowed to be more emotional, but they've been conditioned to be less emotional because that shows weakness.
More practical, less emotional.
Right. So when approaching a woman, sometimes they approach him like a car, right? And so this is quite frustrating for a woman because, he just doesn't understand me in this emotional way. He's just, looking at the...
Right. He's looking at the body style and not what's under the hood.
Sure, exactly. So there's a lot of nice looking cars out there that are crappy under the hood, right?
Yes.
Like, oh my God, I got a real lemon. So...
Is it just a fact of the matter that women are more emotional? Because for me, I mean, I'll just be honest. I struggle with Valentine's Day and sentimental memories and making these things special and all lovey-dovey. As a man, I understand that women have a heightened sense of emotions around these things, and I don't have that. So I kind of have to force it up. I have to produce results to make my woman happy. but I really don't have that connect with these things like the woman does. And does a woman see through that? Are they getting it? Do they see that, okay, men are just not like us? They're different.
No, they
Or,
meant to understand and see that that's important to them. But it really isn't. I think also the girl should realize, or the woman should realize that Valentine's Day is a materialistic. I shouldn't need a day to have my partner prove to me that he cares for me. And unfortunately, as women, we are conditioned by our romance movies, right? And our ideas of the romance novels of how a guy should be, stories that we hear. And we're like, okay, we create these comparisons.
and young men are conditioned by pornography.
And men are conditioned by pornography, so they're looking at the woman like she has to be like these porn stars, and women are thinking I have to be like that, and we don't realize that it is artificial, and sometimes it's sped up. You know, there's enhancements, there's a whole bunch of things going on there that is a smoke and mirror show.
So it's artificial. There's some artificial things going on both ends. For one, the women are dreaming about Casanova, and then the boys are dreaming about a porn star.
Correct.
And these are we're just, it seems like people are coming at this from two extremes, and this conversation needs to happen to help people meet in the middle.
That's right.
Women are not porn stars and men are not Casanovas.
Particularly when you're starting out in a relationship, there's special effects. There's smoke and mirrors. There's infatuation. There's excitement. This could be the one. And then at the same time, there's extreme fear that, oh my gosh, you know, I'm getting carried away here. I don't really, how do I know what's real and what's not? A few years down the line is when people finally see it, or maybe after they have kids, which then maybe you get along great as like partners, but then you have kids and you find out you're not compatible in your parenting way.
What makes a woman want to leave, especially a woman who has a child with a man? What's going wrong there? Because there was a point when she was in love with the man, made love with the man, made a child, and now she wants to leave or has left. Now, I'm not picking on women. Men do this too, but I just want to know from the perspective of a female, what is most likely going on there? What is wrong? Is the man neglecting her in some way?
From what I would think for me, what would make me want to leave my partner with, if I had kids, I don't, or even just from what I've heard with other girls, is like they feel like they can't do it anymore. Like there's no spark anymore. They've tried and it's just not there. It's they feel that they've lost themselves. They don't even know who they are anymore. They don't like the person they are with them. They feel that when kids are involved, I don't want my kids to see this person. That this is not me. They shouldn't have to be raised with this ugly version of me. I have a right to give them the best of myself I can. And if I can't do that with this person, this partner, then I have to do it on my own or with someone else.
Okay, describe some of your experiences of what makes this person not compatible, that turns you off to where you just can't do this anymore. In your experience, you're an attractive woman. You've had these experiences. You've had to get out.
Yes.
Can you share that story? And you recently had to get out of a relationship. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Please elaborate on that a little bit.
So some of the things I already said, like I wasn't myself. I didn't like the person I was. I didn't feel understood. I didn't feel validated that I was contributing anything. I felt used. I felt like I was trapped. I wasn't allowed to do anything because they never wanted to. Work was more important all the time. And if I gave attention to something that wasn't work or to do with that project, then I don't care at all. I'm a horrible person. So I was just tired of that. And then I was isolated from being able to see friends and family because I wanted them to get along, but because they didn't get along, I had felt like I had to choose one.
Sounds like you were dating your boss.
Yeah, I kind of was. I mixed the two. I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't a good idea.
Would you recommend him to any other woman, or is there serious issues going on?
As a partner, no. However, I had to do that in order to end the relationship. I had to bring someone else that I thought that he would be more compatible with than me. And I basically said, you can have,
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of set them
So,
up.
so there's personality flaws within a human being that can cause these issues. I'm going to guess one, he was too controlling. Two, everything was about him. And would it be unfair to say that he was probably not very emotional?
It's very accurate. He was very much like a robot most of the time. Like even his posts, like they are so unrelatable.
So, what lured you in then?
What
How did you get into this man's arms?
again, something different, very, very different than a curiosity of a whole different way of thinking, and also helping me to get my mind back from these beliefs. And I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't have the space or time to do it, and he created that. And then just not being interested in me physically. I always have to deal with this with men, and it's very attractive for a guy to be interested in your mind first.
It's very, very attractive when a man is in love with your mind and wants you for your mind.
As the person you are, yes.
So that's very, very important information right there, fellas.
He never tried anything, and that was very refreshing to me. I was like, whoa, finally somebody who's seeing me for me, because that's all I've ever wanted. That I tried to make myself into what I thought he wanted, and I tried to fit into something that was a square peg into a round hole, basically, right? It's just not going to happen, and I just got tired of doing that.
To get back to emotions and what a woman needs, does it seem to you like you need a certain amount of romance from a man? If a relationship is completely void of romance, is that relationship going to start going into the negative with you?
So I experienced that with my last relationship, and because I made him into an authority of he knows, and I just need to learn. And so if emotions and romance is the source of our problems, is creating like confusion, and is not how we're meant to be, then okay, I will try to do this. I will try not to care about romance. There was no romance. There is no passion. It was just frustrating because I tried so hard to do that and it just didn't work. And now that I'm not in that and I'm pursuing another relationship potentially, I do want romance. I realize I do care about romance, and I do care about emotions. And I would like him to be emotional if he can, or be able to show me that. And because I will definitely show him that.
I had a young female friend, much younger than me, who shared something with me about this. And when we're young, we're more beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We just really are. We're more sexually attractive. And this young lady had a boy that she really loved, and they had a relationship, but she talked about how he just always kind of wanted to touch her and lust over her, and it started to make her feel icky.
Yeah, that happens too. Yeah.
So their relationship fell apart because this young man just didn't know. He didn't understand that every time he saw her, he had lustful thoughts and just wanted to play and put his hands on her. And I'm sure in the beginning, this was quite flattering for her and fun. But at some point, it turned into, this is icky.
What is good is now is bad suddenly, right? There's no growth.
Right.
Now he just sees me as just something attractive and nothing more.
Yeah, she said, when I'm in the room with him, I can catch this vibe. And it was so this young man lost this beautiful woman, a special woman, in her mind was, she's a friend of mine and she's a great person. And he really lost a great woman because of this behavior. Mm-hmm. So young men need to learn that it's not all about that. At some point you're going to creep this woman out if you don't get control of your hormones and your priorities. Right. This is another human being.
So again, it only works for so long. It's like the idea, oh yeah, my intuition's always right, or my guides are psychic, and then we find out that no, there's more to it than that. There's a lot more to it, and we can't just assume and stick with, okay, it was fine before. Now it, like, I have seen healthy relationships. For example, my mother, and I come from a family of five. Like I said, my father, very much in love from the very beginning. They just knew they were for each other, and they had the most amazing relationship. And my mother loved him right up until he died. And sad thing is, my mother doesn't know how to function now without my dad. You know,
Mm.
so it made me like think, okay, I of course I would love to have a relationship like my mom and my dad had. Of course, they couldn't take their hands off of each other either till the very end. But I'm also afraid to have that because I don't want to be like my mother, where I can't go on if I lose them.
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth it
It
to
is.
have what your mom had. I really do. And I think it's unfortunate when we go through a lot of partners, and this seems to be the trend of my generation and going on down. I would like to see a change in the trend to go back to what your mom had.
It would be really nice. I prefer that. I like gentlemen as well. I like, the idea of courting or like waiting to before you become intimate with each other, and all of that. But it's just it's difficult to make us go back in time when we have all this other things around at play all the time. We can call it temptation, or you hang out with your friends and they see a girl and they all talk about her a certain way, and then you do the same thing, right? So
Well, when you see a train wreck, it becomes easier to start going backwards and say, okay, what went wrong? It just seems like we're not doing that yet. And so that's kind of half of the point of why I wanted to talk to you, was about this issue and start bringing it out, start getting people to talk about it, and see if we can fix some of these issues. So I created 3 golden rules for my children. Number one is be productive and proud of yourself,
mm,
because you want your partner, when they think of you, to be proud of you. When they speak about you, when you come around their family and friends, you want your partner to feel proud of you, right? You don't want the opposite. Rule number 2, get rid of the thought and word jealousy. Divorce it. You don't even know what that word means. It is non existent.
mm,
I mean, there's jealousy is a poison. And so uh, I don't even think you should get jealous when somebody cheats on you. You should just be irate. You
yeah,
should be upset. Maybe leave the situation. In a relationship, don't be jealous of your partner. If you catch them talking to somebody of the opposite sex, wow, big deal. Don't worry about it. Trust in your partner. My goodness.
I
I
agree.
mean, because this is just a terrible thing that people do to each other when they're in a relationship. They get jealous when they're looking at or talking to anybody of the opposite sex.
Yeah, and because of that reason, that was another thing with my previous relationship. Jealous all the time. I wasn't allowed to talk to anyone for fear of like how he would react to it, and it just wasn't fair. I was faithful. I never did anything, but yet I wasn't like. And I need to talk to people. I am a friendly, social person, so I was denied that, and that was very frustrating. Like, yes, he agrees.
So that is golden rule number 2, is get rid of jealousy. So I'm giving advice out to you young people who are coming up into the world. Uh, and golden rule number 3, this is for the men, because I had all boys. So golden rule number 3 is never let a week go by where you haven't done something romantic for your lady.
Oh, that's nice.
So, yes, I told my kids that if 7 days goes by and you haven't done something romantic, out of the way, special for her, loving, then you are starting to go into the negative with your woman. And she may not even know it, but it's happening subconsciously,
Mm,
because, this concept of romanticizing a woman does not end after the honeymoon phase.
right.
This continues throughout her life. She is desiring this.
Mhm.
And so I laid out these 3 golden rules for my 2 older boys. They are using them, and they are in healthy relationships. Both of them have beautiful young ladies, and they're both going on long-term relationships now.
The idea of a guy doing something romantic once a week is nice, but I wonder if it might also stress them out to like trying to always figure out something to think, take some time to think about, okay, what can I do for her now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think once you tap into it, it's unlimited. I really do. It's more of an aura, a spirit, than it is like trying to think of what I can do next. And so my boys are applying it, and I ask them if they're practicing the 3 golden rules. They always say yes, and things are going good. So I may have to get them on and talk to them a little bit about it and ask about what they do romantically. How do they keep it alive? How do they keep it going?
That's a great idea for a show, Jeff.
Yeah.
Have your boys on. For women, I think what women can do for guys once a week, or even just for me, like we can talk about love languages, or how you show when you care for someone. What I think is really important to do for the man is just to not make stress or drama for them, to try to reduce it as much as possible. Or if you see they're in stress, like what can I do, right? Don't add to it, or be like, oh, he's not paying attention to me right now. Oh, he's going through something, right? So
Yeah.
Giving them that space as well, like, sometimes when the guy comes home from work, they don't want to talk.
Yeah, and it seems like women tend to immediately marry that to their emotional state and take it personally.
Personal, and they really shouldn't. But sometimes the guy just needs some time to unwind, stare at the TV, drink a beer or whatever, and then he's good to go and talk. Or so
Right. And so there's this kind of common idea, it might be a stereotype, that women tend to nitpick.
Yes. Yeah, they do. They overanalyze certain things, like, oh, he looked at me that way, or he moved, and what does this mean? They're like, he made this. So they
and men are like Fred Flintstone. We're like, no, we didn't.
Yeah, we're like, what? The guy Seinfeld is like, yeah, you want women want to know what's on men's mind? I'll tell you, nothing. And it's not an insult. It's just they're not constantly thinking in the way that the women are thinking. Men think, of course they think, but
men tend to be more practical. When we're thinking, we're not really thinking about our woman. We're thinking about our jobs, or how we're going to afford the new boat that we want to purchase. I mean, we're practical thinkers. We're not as much of an emotional thinker.
Sure. And like when women ask, oh, so what's on your mind? What are you thinking? Oh, nothing, right? Then they get frustrated because they're like, you're lying to me. You're hiding something. And so I think women need to be more understanding with men. They really need to try to, what I do is with everyone, with all relationships, is I try to put myself in other people's shoes.
I really see a connection here with relationships and families and home and love partners, romances. There's a correlation with this, with spirituality and religion. What I went through and what you went through is where a lot of the tools are reality. Recognizing reality, recognizing what is true and what is false. And it seems like the same awakening that me and you have had with our spiritual experiences, that, wow, this is false. This is just not reality. That same situation is the same across borders into relationships, where you don't realize what is reality when you're in a relationship.
It's universal. Yeah, it alters everything, and then it makes us, and then when reality does come, we become at war with it again, because it's not what we want to hear. We want to have everything. We want to know that it just works, and there's no, and that they are perfect to our idea of whatever the standard that is. And
so we need to get away from that fantasy, the fable, and look at reality and make our choices based on reality.
Because you can't drive, you can't function if you're not in reality. That having that mindset think for you is like having a drunk driver drive your mind, in the car. You're bound to crash.
We need to wake up to reality, and hopefully If you can learn these tools of reality, you can apply them before you get highly invested in somebody. That way, you are both not living in some sort of delusion that eventually is going to smack you in the face.
We're a society that is so used to coping, right? We're dealing with the problem after it's happened, and it really like puts us in complete like shock and disarray as we try to pick up the pieces, get some kind of comfort, move on, and fall into the same damn pothole yet again, make the same problem yet again. So we keep recreating our patterns over and over. We do this like on a micro scale within our own personal lives, and on a macro scale in the world, the same kind of wars, the same story over and over within politics, right? And we always lose. So what I love so much is prevention before it even happens. So you know yourself, you know the pattern, you know that within your partner, and so you can prevent that before it even becomes something.
I really believe that this topic for our younger generations needs to be front and center in society, because we have so many depressed people, and so much of that is because heartache.
Yeah.
Because somebody hurt somebody. We can't have people depressed and who just don't give a shit anymore running around. We need to address this situation. I would vouch that we get it into our schools and talk about this, because I mean, people have figured out things that we're talking about. I remember years and years ago, some book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, or something like this. I mean, people have figured this out.
Yeah.
But we lose it. It's not retained in our society.
Forget. We just, again, we're assuming. So, I mean, Women Are From, like, that book it was something to start. But, I mean, there's a lot of things that are ridiculous in that book, too, right?
I never read it, but it seems like the idea dropped off as soon as it came. It seemed like there was a push for it. Hey, people, let's recognize what people need. Let's love each other right. Let's use tools. It disappeared. I never see it anymore.
It's a flash in the pan. And so I don't know, like now, yeah, we're talking about, at that time it was, hey, women are different, men are really different. They're from different worlds. You know, how can we coexist? Now I think it's all about equality, right? We have the feminists. Women are now, they're not okay with being equal with men. They have to be above and beyond men. So that also is creating issues for us too, because we're not, again, looking at how we can complement each other, how we can live harmoniously, but now it's like, how can I be in competition with this person?
And we're trying to erase our differences, right?
How can I impress this person and show them that we're trying
to... But we are different, aren't we?
Well, we're trying to erase our differences, but we're also trying to like really go on it. Like this way, like about South Park is how they go off on how people play on the differences of like the transgender thing and like cis different like things that and they have to have their rights, and like it's always old versus new, right? And it's I think it's getting carried away. I think
that's fine. Yeah, there are people who are born, they don't feel like they identify with their body type. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
We blow it out of proportion and we make it so big.
Yeah,
right. Oh, don't be so PC. Oh, I saw, this kind of all this politically correct terminology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there's always an exception to the rule. There will always be a certain amount of people who were born into the wrong body. There's always going to be a certain amount of people who are born gay or attracted to the opposite sex. Who cares? That's not the majority. It isn't. And that's that's a minority of our population. We embrace them. We love them. But let's address the majority. What about the differences between men and women? They do exist, right? For example, I had young boys, and a friend of mine had girls. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that his little girls had these little dolls. Mm-hmm. And I mean, these girls were young. They're basically toddlers or maybe a little older, but they had little dolls that had diapers that you would put on these dolls. And the dolls would actually pee. They would wet their diapers, and the diapers would need changed.
Yeah.
And they would comb the hair of these little dolls. My God, my sons would have would have hated that toy. They would not want that toy at all.
Yeah.
So when I looked at my friend's kids and go to his house and see the girls' toys, it made me reflect on my boys and the toys that my boys wanted. This wasn't pressed upon my children. This is what my kids wanted.
Yeah.
So there's real difference there between men and women. And I would think that, this idea of making everybody the same is probably not reality. And when you try to delusion reality or create fable, you're going to get smacked in your face with reality eventually.
Absolutely, but I have a qualm with how, like, the toys that we have for boys and girls. Like, the boys is always like war and like be a hero, right? And guns all the time. And then girls is like be pretty, dresses, glamour, mother, look after the baby.
Like we're feeding the extremes.
Like we're yeah, and that spirituality is the same thing. New Age, they have the girl version is like you connect with your angels and a divine goddess, and the men is like conspiracy and Illuminati and reptilian people and September 11th, fight the power, all this kind of stuff. So I see that kind of pattern playing out, and I look after kids for work right now, and I see how some of the mothers, like, they don't want their girl to like be in pinks, like too girly, like they want more gender neutral. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting, right? Not so much have the child identifying with their differences, and like playing off at an extreme where you have to take this role. Like I said, I have 3 brothers, so I'm a tomboy. I relate more with guys. What they do is more interesting. I wouldn't like this peeing baby at all, doll, even though I really like kids. I like playing with them. And
so do you feel like what we're doing is what some parents are doing is we're kind of putting pressure on where we want to push the differences instead of just letting things be natural and accepting reality?
Yeah, I think we should, like, you can't push a difference or force a child to be like, if they're, some people, no, my child's not going to be gay, I'm going to make sure he's, no, if they feel that way, they feel that way.
Yeah, it seems to me like there shouldn't be this pressure. Reality is very organic. It is very natural.
Yeah.
So let's say you have a young boy who's 7 or 8 years old, and you go into Walmart and he wants a little dolly instead of an action figure. Hey, you might have a gay son, but give the boy the damn toy he wants.
Yeah,
don't push for anything. If a young girl wants a dolly, let her have a dolly. If a young boy wants a He-Man action figure, it seems like we should just let nature be nature and let people be people and not push for this. And if there is differences between men and women, in the majority, there's always going to be an exception to the rule. I have many friends who are exceptions to that rule, but just let it be what it is. Just let reality be what reality is.
Yep. And we can't also, a lot of parents want to live through their kids, right, vicariously. So that's why they push as well. And so they're making them into being something that they're
little me's.
And the kids feel that pressure and they embrace it because they want to be loved. They want to be accepted. I mean, I thought church was ridiculous when I was a kid and I was forced to go. But I realized that if I was good and I didn't put gum in anyone's hair and I didn't like make noise when the boring guy was talking, that I could get, and if I could recite also Bible verses, I could get candy. So, okay, I'll embrace this and I'll pretend that I'm a Christian or whatever you want me to be, to the point that I forgot I was pretending.
So we need to lay off on the manipulation.
Yeah, particularly when we think it's what we think is right for a person is not necessarily right for that person. I said that before.
And that's including our kids, which oftentimes we think that our kids belong to us, but they don't. They are their own sentient being.
People think their kids are something they own, right? And that they are to mold them what they want them to be. They have all these wrong ideas when they have kids. People are having kids for not the best.
And this goes into adulthood and goes right into our relationships and poisons everything.
That's right.
I get so many people that give me a hard time about my red glasses. I mean, I don't have to wear them, but
it's not that. It's a look you've created for yourself. It's now a
Yeah.
signature logo. People know you as this.
Yeah, it's my artistic character, and I'm an artist. And people want to change me. They want to change that. I see it desperately in their messages. They so want me to look like a scholar.
Yeah.
And I'm not a scholar. I'm a musician. I am a straight up artist. I've been a musician all my life. I'm not a scholar, but I'll tell you what, I've studied the crap out of Christian theology and history. I know what I'm talking about, but I'm not a scholar. I am an artist, and people try to change me. I won't budge. And so we need to, I think as a society, we need to stop the manipulation and let people express themselves as they are. And this seems to be a big problem in relationships, where one person has this idea of how you're supposed to act. In my relationship, every time I got on my video game, my partner got jealous.
Yeah.
I couldn't even enjoy my time on the video game because I could feel that vibe coming in from the other room.
Yeah. And you need to have time to yourself before you can also give time to a partner. I don't like this idea of suffocating each other. Like I mean, of course, when you're really into the person, you want to be with them all the time. But again, is it right? Is that wise to be with them all the time? You need to have time to yourself. You have other obligations and responsibilities, and
spread the word. Spread the word. You're just being programmed to believe in miracles when love is all you really need. I don't believe in masquerades. I don't believe that you're okay. I don't believe that God will save. Only you can solve your problems. I don't care what they sold you. They are not here to hold you. Don't believe it for a moment. Don't believe them for a moment. I have only wanted to hold you, and I lie awake wondering if I'll ever see and I lie awake, wondering if I'll ever see you change and wake you up, 'cause you've been sleeping. I wake you up 'cause you've been sleeping, and wake you up 'cause you've been sleeping. I wake you up 'cause you've been sleeping, and wake you up 'cause you've been sleeping.